All right, everybody, get ready for a wild one today because we are going deep on a case that is going to make you question everything you think you know about justice.
Ooh, yeah.
We're talking about the murder of Nona Dirks,
Oh, this one?
a young Arkansas beauty queen, but her case
Yeah.
has more twists and turns than, I don't know, like a backwoods dirt road.
It really does.
And to really get to the bottom of this one, we're diving deep into the Wondery podcast, 48 Hours, Beauty Queen Betrayal.
It's a good one.
Yeah. So how about you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm a forensic psychologist.
Right.
And I've been following this case for years.
Okay.
It's one of those cases that just gets under your skin.
Yeah, and it really throws a wrench in the gears of those true crime tropes, you know?
Oh, yeah,
It
absolutely.
makes you think about how assumptions and tunnel vision can just completely derail an investigation.
It really does.
Even when everyone involved is supposedly trying to find the same truth, which is, justice for Nona.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
real head scratcher.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Nona Dirks, this young beauty queen, she wasn't really your stereotypical pageant girl, was she?
No, not at all.
Like, what do we know about her?
Well, from what I've gathered, she was actually really shy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like painfully shy.
Huh.
But then she kind of blossomed through pageants.
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't that?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, this young woman
Yeah.
finding her voice,
Mm-hmm.
not in a bustling crowd or anything, but like on a pageant stage.
Yeah, it's kind of poetic in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like shedding a skin, becoming more bold.
Yeah, exactly.
And it seems like pageants really did become her platform
Yeah, it seems that way.
to find her confidence and her purpose, but also to speak out against child abuse.
Yeah, she was very passionate about that.
And knowing that Nona herself had survived abuse
Right.
by her biological father, it's like
Mm,
this tragic echo, you know?
it really is.
But in the midst of all that darkness in her past, she had Kevin,
Mm,
her high school sweetheart.
they were very close.
It seems like a real storybook romance.
Yeah, high school sweethearts.
Always there for each other.
It seemed like they were destined to be tea together, get married, the whole 9 yards.
And even when Kevin went off to a different college, they stayed connected, right?
Oh, yeah. Phone calls, visits, the whole bit.
But then December 15th, 2005 rolls around.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
Everything changes.
So what happens?
Well, Kevin's trying to reach Nona after her exam,
Mm-hmm.
and he can't get a hold of her.
Okay.
No answer.
Oh, no.
So he starts to get worried.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And eventually he calls his friend Ryan
Okay.
and asks him to go check on her.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan goes over to Nona's apartment,
Yeah.
and her car's there.
Okay.
Lights are on,
Oh.
but no answer at the door.
Oh, no.
So now they're really getting worried.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine that feeling?
Uh-huh.
The creeping dread, like something's wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Something's really wrong.
Yeah.
So they figure out a way to get into the apartment.
Okay.
Kevin, his mother, and Ryan.
Yeah.
And
This is bad, isn't it?
it's a nightmare.
Oh, no.
They find Nona's body,
Oh, my God.
lifeless on the floor, a lamp nearby, covered in blood.
Oh, that's awful.
It's a horrific scene.
It is, and I imagine seeing something like that just throws immediate suspicion on Kevin, right?
Well, finding a significant other
Yeah.
at a crime scene,
Mm-hmm.
it happens a lot more than you might think.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
But it doesn't automatically make them guilty.
Right.
The real challenge for investigators
Yeah.
is separating, those emotional reactions
Yeah.
from the actual evidence,
Yeah.
objective facts of the case.
Okay, so what are the facts in this case?
Well, the police zeroed in on a few key things.
Like what?
Kevin was covered in Nona's blood.
Okay.
His behavior at the scene was, well, they said it was strange,
Okay.
and he failed a polygraph test.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, it looks bad.
Yeah. On the surface.
Yeah. So let's break down each of those points.
Okay, sure.
Starting with the blood evidence. I mean, it's crucial, right?
Oh, absolutely. Blood can tell you a lot about what happened at a crime scene.
But how reliable is it, really?
Well, that's the thing. It can be surprisingly complex to interpret.
I see.
Like, take the blood on the murder weapon,
Yeah.
the lamp.
Yeah.
The police described it as tacky,
Meaning?
meaning it was still wet,
Oh, okay.
which would seem to support Kevin's claim that he touched it while trying to help Nona, not during an attack.
Okay, I get it.
But, and here's the thing,
Yeah.
blood drying times, they can vary wildly,
Oh, really?
depending on all sorts of factors.
Like what?
You got environmental conditions, the volume of blood, even the surface it's on.
Wow. So that one word, tacky,
Yeah,
really throws a wrench into the prosecution's timeline.
it really does.
Okay. And what about the polygraph?
Ah, the polygraph.
Yeah.
It's a controversial tool, even amongst experts.
Oh,
Yeah, some people think it's completely bogus.
huh.
Others say it can be useful in certain situations.
Okay.
But the problem is, the results can be influenced by a lot of things.
Like what?
Stress, anxiety, even underlying medical conditions.
So, not exactly foolproof.
Not even close.
So, we've got potentially misleading blood evidence and a polygraph that's far from definitive.
Right.
But then there's also the supposed motive for the crime.
Yeah, what about that?
Jealousy.
Ah, yes. The green-eyed monster.
So the police found a used condom wrapper in Nona's apartment, and they jumped to the conclusion that Kevin flew into a rage.
Makes sense. Right.
Kind of. I mean, it's like a classic noir film,
Exactly.
the scorned lover blinded by passion.
Yeah, but it's a dangerous oversimplification, isn't it?
To say that just because someone's jealous, they're going to become violent.
Very dangerous.
Right. But then on top of that, they thought they had a smoking gun.
What's that?
Kevin's palm print
Oh, yeah.
on the light bulb of that bloody lamp.
Right, right.
But remember that tacky blood?
Yeah.
If it was still wet, like Kevin's defense was saying,
Yeah.
then he could have touched it innocently.
And left that print without ever attacking Nona.
Wow. So what started out as this really damning evidence
Right.
is now totally open to interpretation.
Exactly.
And that's really just the tip of the iceberg with this case.
It is.
There are missteps and inconsistencies everywhere you look.
It's true.
Like decisions made by the investigators that just raise more questions than answers.
Like what?
Well, for instance, why would they give Nona's cell phone to her stepfather
Yeah, that's weird.
during the investigation?
That's a big no-no.
Yeah, and even the lead detective admitted later that it was a mistake. It's a real facepalm moment, and it makes you wonder what else might have been overlooked or mishandled in those early stages.
Right. You can't help but wonder about that.
Yeah.
Like classic tunnel vision.
What do you mean?
When investigators get fixated on a particular theory, it can be really hard to step back and see things objectively.
I see.
And then you get this confirmation bias.
You mean it?
They start filtering the evidence to fit their preconceived notions.
Wow. So how does all of this play into Kevin's defense?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting.
So.
The defense starts poking holes in the prosecution's case.
Okay.
They point out those inconsistencies,
Yeah.
the mishandling of DNA evidence,
Mm-hmm.
the shoddy police work,
Right.
and they raise the possibility that someone else could have been involved.
They basically say, hey, there's reasonable doubt here.
Exactly.
So the jury's presented with two very different versions of the truth.
All
And
right.
while they're deliberating, I imagine the tension in that courtroom is palpable
Oh, absolutely.
because this case had divided the whole community, right?
Yeah, you had people who were convinced of Kevin's guilt
Mm-hmm.
and others who were just as certain that he was innocent.
Wow. So everyone's waiting with bated breath
Yeah.
for the jury to come back with a decision.
A decision that could change everything.
And the question on everyone's mind is, what will it be?
Will they believe the police?
Yeah.
Or will they side with the defense?
Wow. This is getting good.
It is, isn't it?
Okay, so before we go to break, let's just recap what we've learned so far.
Okay, sounds good.
So we have Nona Dirks,
Yeah.
this young beauty queen who had a really tough past.
Right.
She was trying to use her platform to help others,
Absolutely.
but then she's found murdered in her apartment,
Tragically.
and her boyfriend, Kevin, becomes the prime suspect.
Yeah, because he was there
Right.
and he was covered in blood.
But as we've seen,
Uh.
the evidence against him is far from clear-cut.
Not at all.
There's a lot of reasonable doubt.
Absolutely.
So the question is,
Yeah.
what's going to happen next?
You have to stay tuned to find out.
Yeah. We'll be back after the break with more on this truly captivating case.
I can't wait.
And the jury came back with a verdict of not guilty. Yeah.
What a moment that must have been.
It really is both a relief and a gut punch.
Oh, absolutely.
On the one hand, you've got Kevin finally free
Yeah.
from the weight of those charges. But on the other hand, you have Nona's family.
Hmm.
They're left grappling with a verdict that feels like a total denial of justice.
Yeah, it's tough because the legal system, it doesn't always offer, neat resolutions.
It really doesn't.
Like sometimes a not guilty verdict still leaves behind
Yeah.
all these unanswered questions, these
Yeah.
lingering doubts.
Yeah, and in this case, that's exactly what happened.
It is.
But this is where the Nona Dirks case takes a really unexpected turn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Years after Kevin's acquitted,
Mm-hmm.
a new piece of evidence comes to light.
Okay.
And it throws the entire investigation into a whole new light.
So what is it?
Remember that condom wrapper?
Oh, yeah, the one they found in Nona's apartment.
Right, and the police focused on getting fingerprints from it rather than DNA evidence.
Which, looking back, seems
Yeah.
kind of crazy, right?
It really does, especially considering how advanced DNA technology was even back then.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thankfully, Kevin's defense team was thinking ahead.
Okay.
And they had that wrapper tested after the trial.
Smart.
Yeah, and the results were a game changer.
What do you mean?
The DNA didn't match Kevin.
Whoa.
Yeah, talk about a plot twist, right?
Seriously, but this isn't a TV show. This is real life.
Right.
With real consequences.
Yeah, so suddenly the focus shifts away from Kevin, and the investigation goes in a totally new direction.
So who are they looking at now?
A guy named Gary Dunn.
Okay.
He was Nona's neighbor, and he actually had a criminal history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they arrest him
Okay.
and charge him with Nona's murder.
Wow.
Yeah, but now there's all these questions about the original investigation.
Like, did they totally screw up by focusing on Kevin?
Right. Did their tunnel vision prevent them from even considering other possibilities? And it's easy to criticize in hindsight, of course, but
Yeah.
you can't help but wonder, what if they had prioritized that DNA testing from the start?
Yeah. Well,
Things could have been so different.
Absolutely.
So Gary Dunn's arrest, does that bring justice for Nona?
Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple.
What happened?
He went to trial,
Okay.
not once, but twice.
Wow.
And both times the jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision.
So 2 hung juries.
Yeah,
It's like the legal system itself is mirroring the uncertainty of the case.
it really is.
No closure for Nona's family.
Right.
No definitive answer for anyone who believed in Kevin's innocence.
It's a frustrating outcome all around.
It really is. And then to make matters even more complicated,
Yeah.
Gary Dunn gets convicted of a kidnapping
Oh, wow.
in a completely unrelated case.
So they got him on something else.
Yeah, he was sentenced to 15 years.
But that doesn't really help with Nona's case, does it?
It doesn't.
I mean, it's a significant conviction, for sure. But it doesn't really answer the question of what happened to Nona.
No, and that's what makes this whole case so haunting.
Yeah.
Even with all the twists and turns and the new evidence and the trials, we're still left with this tangled web of what ifs and maybes.
It's true.
Did the justice system fail Nona?
That's a good question.
Did Kevin, even though he was acquitted, did he unfairly endure years of suspicion and scrutiny?
Yeah.
And did Gary Dunn, even though he was convicted of another crime, did he escape accountability for Nona's murder?
We may never know the answers for sure.
And that's the most unsettling aspect of it all.
It really is.
Man, this case really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
So many layers, so much to unpack.
It's like one of those puzzles where you think you're getting close to the solution, but then another piece pops up and throws everything off.
Right, and it makes you question everything you thought you knew.
Exactly.
If you were trying to untangle this web, where would you even start?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It's a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah.
A story with no clear ending.
And we're left grappling with all these what-ifs and maybes.
Trying to make sense of a senseless act.
We've got the palm print on the lamp, the DNA on that condom wrapper, conflicting accounts from witnesses.
It's enough to make your head spin.
It is. So for you, what's the most crucial piece of the puzzle?
You know, for me, it's how this case highlights the power of those initial impressions.
What do you mean?
Well, the police, they saw Kevin covered in blood.
Right.
They interpreted his behavior as suspicious.
Yeah.
And they just zeroed in on him as their prime suspect.
Okay.
And that initial assessment, even if it's based on incomplete information, it can have a ripple effect throughout the entire investigation.
It's like a snowball effect.
Exactly.
It just keeps building and building.
And it becomes almost impossible to see things objectively.
Right. And we see that with the whole tacky blood debate.
Ah, yeah.
Even when their own expert questioned their interpretation.
Yeah. They clung to that description.
Right. They were determined to make the evidence fit their narrative.
Exactly.
It shows that even the most seasoned investigators,
Yeah.
they're not immune to bias.
They're human, just like us,
Right. Susceptible to all sorts of influences.
whether they realize it or not.
And this deep dive, it's not just about dissecting this murder mystery.
It's about exploring the human element within the criminal justice system itself,
The potential for error,
the biases,
the brilliant insights.
and the devastating missteps.
Right, because we've met Nona.
Yeah, the shy girl who found her voice on the pageant stage.
And we've grappled with the conflicting emotions surrounding Kevin.
The devoted boyfriend turned prime suspect.
And then there's Gary Dunn.
The neighbor with a criminal past who enters the picture later.
And through all of it,
We've been challenged to think critically, to
Yeah.
question the narratives that we're presented with, and to acknowledge that the truth is often a lot more elusive than we'd like to believe.
absolutely. And I think Nona's story really drives that point home.
It does.
Because things are rarely black and white.
Nope.
And sometimes even when the trials end,
Yeah.
the search for answers continues.
The need for closure.
What we've done here today is just a starting point.
A glimpse into a case that's both captivating and frustrating.
But it's not the end of the story.
Not by a long shot.
So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to go deeper.
Yeah, explore the court transcripts
Listen to the interviews.
and form your own conclusions.
What do you think happened?
Share your thoughts,
Your theories.
your insights,
Because this case
more than most.
demands continued conversation.
Continued examination.
And remember,
The quest for knowledge doesn't end with a single deep dive.
there's always more to uncover
More to learn.
and more perspectives to consider.
So until next time,
Stay curious
keep questioning
and never stop seeking the truth.
wherever it may lead.